So, good day everyone. My name is Chermy Pagas from BTL Ed 2A. And for today's topic, let's talk about beef. So, beef is the culinary name for meat from cattle. In prehistoric times, humans hunted oroch and later domesticated them. So since that time, numerous breeds of cattle have been bred specifically for the quality or quantity of their meat. Okay, so the quality characteristics of beef. When you purchase beef for food service operation, always check for the grade and inspection stamps. The best quality beef will have a bright red color. So kita nga as a purchaser, no, especially kung sa karne, ato ag yung tan-awon kung presko bagyod ang karne. To identify the freshness, of course, tan-awon nato ang iyahang image or kaning ang iyahang ang meat mismo kung kaning naa pa ba siya dugo, kung ang iyahang baho ba pod is kanang bag-uhay pa ba gid ni siya gikatay or syempre mailhan man gid nato nga ang daan nga karne kay kanang luspad gid siya tan-awon. So the meat purchaser will also need to decide on the desired fat thickness for the meat. Fat marbling in beef ranges from slight to moderately abundant. So next is the types of meat. So there are 17 types of meat and I'll be discussing uh, each one of them. So first is the hump. Hump contains the meaty portions on the top of the first few ribs. It contains of several muscle layers running in different directions. So the hump is boneless cut and its size varies depending on breed. So second is the neck. A very tasty cut neck meat consists mostly of meat with some connective tissue that becomes gelatinous during cooking. So, in short, as the name suggests, beef neck, it is a cut taken from the neck. It also called beef chuck as produces a tough but very flavorful cuts of meat. Third is the shin. When cross-cut into slices, shin makes fantastic ossobuco. Shin is home to the marrow bones, which are delicious in soups and stews. Shin, also known as the shank, it is also cut of beef taken from the front lower leg of a steer. Due to the connective tissue, this cut is very tough, so it is commonly braised or slow cooked to tenderize the meat. So next is bolo. Used whole, the bolo's rich flavor makes a fabulous pot roast. Cube for stewing, slice with knife. Slice with a knife for braising or turn into a steak beef olive for frying. So and also bolos should be prepared medium to medium rare to prevent toughness. Next is chalk. With the chalk, the challenge is to soften the tough meat so that you can enjoy its flavor. Chuck steaks are usually marinated before cooking. Chuck is one of the most popular cuts for making ground beef, so it's also favored for meatballs and burgers. Chucks comes from cow's shoulder. So i-familiarize na to no nga ang chuck is kanang dito gid nato siya kuhaon sa cow's cow's shoulder, and it's a very flavorful region that can be cut and prepared in many ways, but it's also typically a firmer cut of beef. Next is flat rib. beef flat rib, sometimes called beef short rib. No? It it is a favorite cut of beef for roasting. When braised adequately, this cut can become meltingly tender. It's also delicious when sliced thin and cooked quickly over high heat. No, so it also comes from the end of the brisket and from the piece often called a ladder. Next is brisket. This large piece of flavor-packed beef is often cured or smoked, but it's also one of the best cuts for braising and slow cooking. Brisket toughness can be counteracted with long, slow cooking to deliver a rich, thin, tender meat. It is also cut from breast, a section of the animal, and normally sold boneless. So as we can see, wala gi kabukog-bukog ang meat na brisket. Next is the prime rib. Prime rib is a juicy, tender, and marbled with fat. Its tenderness comes from muscles that aren't heavily used, and it stays juicy because of its fat. No, so the cut of prime rib come from the back of the upper rib section of the steer, and it usually comprises to a total of 7 ribs. So next is the soft flank. A long, flat cut of meat from the abdominal region. This steak comes from hard-working muscles. The resulting meat is fibrous and tough, but packed with flavor. An expensive flank steak, marinated and pan-seared, is a guaranteed crowd pleaser. So next is the wing rib. This cut consists of the backbone, 3 or 4 ribs, and large eye muscle, and an even covering of fat. No? And it is also cut from the first 3 ribs bones of the sirloin rather. Wing ribs makes for tasty oven roast and steaks that are best grilled or pan fried. So next is the T-bone. T-bone is considered one of the highest quality dinner table steaks. No, it's also distinctive T-shaped. Bone is nestled between 2 steaks, each one of prized cut of beef. Choose a cut with slight marbling and healthy-looking red color. Use a fast dry heat method of cooking meat. T-bone cut from short loin, subprimal from the front portion of the larger loin primal. So next is the rump. Rump is one of the more tender portions and probably the most sought after steak is in South Africa. This is because it's one of the most active areas of the cow's body and requires a long time to cook in order to soften. Ideally, rump steak should be cooked on low for several hours. And rump is the division between the leg and the chine, cut right through the eighth bone. Next is the fillet. Fillet has very little fat or sinew and is evenly shaped. No? Dili lang man gid sa meat or sa cow's meat na to makita ang fillet, but mostly sa fish. No, it's quick to prepare and always tender. It often needs a good flavor enhancer as the meat itself is not very robust. Uh, and of course, a fillet is a very tender steak muscle which comes from the lower middle of the back and forms part of the sirloin. Next is the top side. Top side comes from the inner muscles of the thigh. This muscle is quite tender and very lean, making it ideal for roasting and carving into lean slices. And make sure to baste your top side regularly while it's in the oven. And for the silver side, taken from the hindquarter, is this is a large, lean, boneless cut of meat with very little marbling of fat and a wide grain texture. No, but take note, guys. Class, the top side and silver side of beef are both taking from the hind quarter of the animal between the rump and the leg. No? So next is the ich bone. This cut of beef is taken from the rump area of the cow, and it includes a wishbone shape bone through the piece of meat. It isn't quite as tender or well marbled as sirloin, but the lean meat is certainly flavorful. Lastly is the thick flank. This cut is ideal for a lean, juicy Sunday steak. No? So trim it before cooking in the oven or boil it uh, in tender in a classic French casserole. Now for the processing beef. Beef is just like a pork. Beef can be processed in several different ways before it arrives at a food service operation. The method of processing greatly affects on how beef will taste. So there are three processing of the beef. There is curing. Beef, like pork, also can be cured and smoked. No, this processes help increase the shelf life of beef and greatly affects its flavor. Smoking meat will also decrease its surface moisture, helping to prevent bacterial growth. And for the aging beef under refrigeration has long been known to increase its tenderness and enhance its flavor. No, in aging beef is hung in a controlled environment such as meat locker with strict humidity and temperature conditions. Under these conditions, the meat fibers begin to break down, tenderizing and flavoring the meat. And the third one, the last is the irrigation. Beef can also be irrigated to kill microorganisms. Although irrigated beef has far fewer microorganisms such as E. coli, E. coli bacteria, and it still must be refrigerated and carefully stored to prevent cross contamination. Irrigated beef also has a longer shelf life. Um, that's all for my report for today, and thank you for listening.